Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Alex Avila with Love University. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on today's video. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Alex Avila with Love University, and we're back. I'm an author, psychologist, and speaker. Every week we talk about how to love ourselves, others, and a higher nature, how to improve our finances, career, health, relationships, and spirituality. And today we have a very special guest, Megan Logan, who is a licensed clinical social worker. He has over 20 years of counseling experience working in settings including domestic violence, sexual assault, eating disorders, and hospice programs. Her specialties include trauma, abuse, eating disorders, grief, loss, and also play therapy. And she's the author of the bestselling book, Self-Love for Women, a workbook, release self-doubt, build self-compassion, and embrace who you are. Also, she mentions she has 2 soccer-playing teenage children. She loves boxer dogs, and she plays guitar and sings a little bit off-key. Welcome to the show, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
Here's a big question. When you sing a little bit off-key, do you have self-compassion or self-criticism?
I have self-compassion. I love singing, and if it's off-key, it doesn't seem to bother me.
Okay. The whole idea of self-love, it's a very fascinating concept. It's been popularized recently. Many ways. Used to be self-esteem, now self-love. Now you define it in your workbook, which I think is really a very amazing book, how to reach your full potential. You call it fuel. And this is a fuel to reach your full potential: compassion, grace, gentleness, making space to prioritize yourself, also setting boundaries and believing in your gifts. So tell us a little bit about that. What is self-love?
Well, I think that I always start by saying what self-love isn't. And self-love, doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money. It's not something that is just bubble baths and manicures or taking a vacation. Those are all things you can do when you practice self-love. Yes. But it goes much deeper than that. It's really being kind and compassionate towards yourself and for your failures and your successes. And it also involves being able to know your gifts and your strengths and how to show up in the world and use them in your relationships or in your career or just in the different things that you do without your life. So if you don't start with self-love, it makes it very hard to have healthy relationships and reach your goals.
That makes a lot of sense. And our motto here at Love University is to love yourself, others, and a higher nature, whether you believe as God or spirit and so forth. And one of the things that's interesting is you say what it is not. So what self-love is not? Say it is not perfectionism. It is not always having to be happy. It is not based on external accomplishments. But people will say, wait a minute, I feel good when I get a raise or I write a book or something. Why is it not based on external accomplishments?
Well, I think we set ourselves up when we put our focus on external measurements of success to sometimes allow other things that are outside of our control be a factor in our worth. And so there's a lot of different reasons something might become successful, but we may actually be reaching our success by following our own values and living our lives in agreement with what's important to us. And so it might not reach the levels of success and popularity or lots of money or what size you are, what car you drive. If those things happen to match your values, let's say perhaps they're measures of success and being able to have security and have a nice home is important to you because it's one of your values, then I say, you've reached that success, but it's coming from internally, it's coming from within, and it's aligning with your values, as opposed to external measures that we don't always have control over.
That makes a lot of sense. The internal dictates the outer. Having love internally you can express it externally. And the other thing that you talk about are the benefits of self-love. You say having more energy, more love to share. You mentioned having a full cup as opposed to an empty cup, and also better relationships. So what are the benefits of self-love?
I definitely think having healthier relationships is a key component to that. People forget a big part of self-love is being able to communicate your needs and wants and to be able to set boundaries with others. And if you either overextend yourself by being responsible for everyone else and what they're thinking and feeling, we can practice, a little bit more self-neglect, and that can lead to resentment. It can lead to frustration and sometimes unhealthy dynamics in relationships. So that is a key component. I think that self-love is something that also allows us to be able to make a difference and change in the world that we live in. So it starts from within, and then we can share that outward to the world, and it can radically change the world we're living in. If everyone loved themselves and knew their gifts and their values and their strengths, I think we'd be in a much different place in our world.
Yes, I agree with it. But then it brings us to the other side of the coin is unlove yourself, which is you talk about shame, doubt, guilt. And this book is targeted apparently to women. And you talk about women as, you know, they're caretakers many times, maybe culturally thought to be that way, mothers. And they feel guilty. You know, if I take time out for myself, how am I going to take care of my kids or my spouse or partner, whatever it is? So what do women do in this case? They have so many things going on. Can they have self-love with all these things?
I think so. They have to learn to prioritize themselves. It's the, you know, the cliche as far as put your oxygen mask on first so that you can then be available to help others and to nurture.
Yes.
And women are oftentimes, we sacrifice our own needs for the sake of others, and we can find a way of balancing that.
That makes sense. But also, you know, I wrote a book, Love Types, on Myers-Briggs and compatibility relationships. And you also talk about Myers-Briggs. There's a type called the SJ, security seekers, or I call them the caretakers. And some actually are males. And I'm wondering if any of this stuff could apply to males as well, who are also caretakers. You know, they're the stay-at-home dads, and they have all that kind of personality type as well.
Absolutely. I think that it does not just have to be for women. That book was, I think, specifically marketed to women because that's a big movement in the self-help arena. But I think it should really be self-love work for all humans because we all find ourselves giving and caring and wanting to have healthy relationships.
Exactly. Now, the opposite of having self-love is, I guess, not having it. And you talk about the empty tank. So when you don't have self-love, you probably are more tired, I would think. You probably don't perform as well as work. And you mentioned body checking, you know, body dysmorphia, like not thinking your body's good enough with women. You say that happens a lot. The binging, you know, kind of, I guess, eating disorders possibly. And also perfectionism and all that kind of stuff. So tell us, how does that work? When your tank is empty, your self-love tank is empty, what happens?
Well, when we oftentimes will look towards those outside measures or outside things that we don't have control over, and that can kind of make us lose control of ourselves, and that can be exhausting. It takes a lot of energy to practice living in shame and not feeling good enough. We're hustling constantly to try to be good enough and find ways that we can measure our worth, and it is truly exhausting. When you have self-love to fuel from within, it's energizing. It actually allows you to want to show up and use your gifts. And so I think energy is a big part of that.
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, in psychology, we do hear about this inner critic, the self-defeating voices, you know, all these things we have, whether it's from our parents, you know, you're not good enough, you're not attractive enough, you're not smart enough. So these are very challenging things. And I know you address a lot of that in your workbook. And the problem is that sometimes because you don't love yourself, you attract toxic relationships. Like you talk about narcissists or other kind of people. So how do women and also men perhaps avoid attracting these kind of destructive relationships because of lack of self-love?
I think that's the key component with communication and boundary setting. When you know what your worth is, you won't allow unhealthy, toxic patterns to be there. And sometimes it can happen in a very covert way. People who tend to be very empathic and kind and sensitive sometimes can be sucked in very quickly and easily. But it's recognizing that I need to protect my energy. I need to protect myself from being drained and find things that are more life-giving and fulfilling. And so boundaries is a way to do that, and communicating our needs and wants clearly and without being manipulative or passive aggressive, that can also allow us to be able to maintain our self-respect and our self-worth.
Right. You also talk about like perfectionism as kind of a subtle component of this lack of self-love. And so I'm kind of wondering, where do you think this lack of self-worth or self-love comes from? You know, the so-called I'm not good enough, or, you know, I have to work harder. Some people think it's maybe from our voices from our parents or genetic. What's been your experience as a therapist?
I think it's absolutely a combination of a lot of different factors. It's the world we live in, our societal messages and programming that's there. I think there's generational trauma that gets passed down, and our family messages of of what's important. And I think if our parents or their parents haven't done the work on themselves, then it filters down through how children develop their self-concept. And I think biology does play a role in that. There are people that struggle with depression, and they kind of see the world through the lens of really struggling with a distorted view and thinking very negative thoughts about themselves. And so that can also play a factor.
Right. Also, authors, we often write about what we need. So I'm actually a shy person. I wrote a book called The Gift of Shyness to help shy people transform that. And shyness can be sensitivity, but also there's a self-conscious side, right? You think people are judging you and criticizing you. I'm kind of curious about you. Did you ever have lack of self-worth growing up or even today? I mean, tell us about your path.
Absolutely. I am very introverted. I'm probably 90% introverted. I'm an INFJ.
I was going to say that. I think I had you pegged.
Yeah. And so I have always struggled with feeling, definitely struggled with perfectionism and those kinds of things. Yes. I'm definitely not in that place anymore. Yes. But I still have social anxiety in party situations or making small talk with people. That's really hard for me. But I've learned to challenge myself and to be very proud of myself. It's kind of funny. I'm prouder of myself if I go to a party or an event and I don't back out of it or make an excuse and I navigate that successfully compared to some of my achievements and successes in the world, which to me were easy to do and something that just came naturally.
Because introverted people usually are pretty good in school, right? Academically and well. But the social skills sometimes, that's the key connection.
It's challenging.
And are you an only child, by the way?
No, I actually have a twin sister and I have an older sister.
Oh, okay. Twin sister. Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. So I can tell your internal energy and feeling. Now, I look around, your house looks pretty organized. So I'm thinking structured is your thing. You're pretty...
Well, I just decorated for Christmas and I just moved into a home. So it's all pretty and neat because I literally just moved in a couple weeks ago. I haven't had a chance to get messy.
I see. Now, you also have in the workbook an interesting quiz that talks about self-worth. I think it says, I believe I am worthy is a question. I deserve good things in life. So I guess this is a good measuring stick, right? People need to know where they are in terms of self-worth first. And before they get into it.
Yeah, it's a good pretest to take. And I think, as you work through the workbook, and I've gotten feedback from people. I actually wrote the book thinking I would just use it with my clients in session. And so I wrote it with that mindset. And you can take the pretest or take it at the end of the book and realize how much you change. But you also can do the workbook a year later and have a completely different relationship with the questions and the content. When I first published the book, I had a couple people reach out to me and ask if I would talk in their book club. And I did a speaking engagement, and I loved the women so much I joined the book club, and I actually did the workbook myself with the women.
There you go.
And a year later we did it again, and I did the workbook again a year later, and completely was at a different place in my life and gained different things from that, insights and awareness.
I see that. Now, the other thing is I like about your book, you have a lot of techniques and exercises. I'll just go through some of them. You can tell me what you think. So you have empowering music, for women especially. Affirmations, I am worthy of love and belonging. One that's interesting is talk to your younger self. I use this exercise a lot. Think back to when you were 13 and maybe you're shy or whatever it is, or you can't talk to people, but then you can comfort yourself. Also about that one. How would you talk to your 13-year-old self yourself?
Well, it's interesting. I'm a teenager. My kids are a little bit older. They're 17 and 18. But actually remembering what I was like when I was 13 has helped me as a mom to be able to have a little bit of compassion and really be able to put myself in their shoes and have some empathy. But I would be really kind to my 13-year-old self. And I would encourage her and tell her that she was amazing and awesome. And the things that mattered to me then don't matter to me at all now. And that's just part of growing. And I would give her insight into recognizing that these things are important to you now, but one day they're not going to matter.
Very good point. And also talking to yourself as if you talk to your best friend is a very good one, because it's your best friend to say messed up at work and they got fired. Now, if it's you might say, you dumb, why did you do that? But you wouldn't say that to your best friend. So it's a whole different conversation you would have. And so,
there's a lot more kindness and compassion that we give to other people than we do for ourselves.
Isn't that interesting? Why is that? I'm wondering about that.
I think we think that beating ourselves up is going to make us better. I think sometimes we think that if I can push myself to be a better version of myself, I know for me, it happens automatically and I don't even realize. I had to do a video the other day and I was doing it and I played it back and I had to keep doing edits because I would make mistakes and I would talk out loud. Oh, Megan, that's stupid. Or why did you say that? And it was so critical that I didn't even realize
the critical
how negative it was.
Kind of interesting. So I think you talk about, in the East, there's a term called Tonglen. You may have heard of meditation where you breathe in suffering and you breathe out compassion. In your exercise, you breathe in confidence, you breathe out doubt or self-doubt. So it's kind of like a reversal. I kind of like that's a good way to reverse things. You also mentioned having cheerleaders. List your people that support you in life. What if you have nobody except your dog? Should you put your dog?
Absolutely. Okay. Animals, they love us unconditionally. Sometimes they're the better version of unconditional love.
Boxer there by any chance? They want to say hi?
They're in the bedroom, so they won't bark.
Oh, okay. Boxers, I guess, I think of boxing, they're kind of tough. Are they tough?
Yeah. They're loyal and rambunctious and sweet and and tough too. So.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess maybe like you or owners are usually like your dogs.
That's what they say. Yep.
Now, the other thing I liked on page 88 is something called Recipe for Self-Worth. I thought that was a little humorous. This is things like have 1 cup of authenticity and also a teaspoon of speaking your mind and a few other things. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that recipe for yourself?
I don't know. That's just something that I think is it's kind of fun. It's a little bit of a creative, fun activity. Sometimes it can get really heavy and serious doing self-love work. It can be really difficult and challenging to go to those really darker places. We think self-love is all happy and sunshine and roses, and it can be very painful to go down that journey. Really? So it's fun to kind of lighten it up.
What's the painfulest part? Realizing that you're not self-loving? Is that the idea that you hurt yourself a lot?
Yeah, and I think just replaying some of the ways that you got to a place of not loving yourself, where that comes from. It's like wounds. You have wounds and things and injuries throughout life that you need, that need healing.
Right. You've heard of the inner child work with John Bradshaw and a lot of therapists.
Yeah.
How to, I guess, re-heal the child, the inner child.
Yes, and my other book that I have, it's set up over the seasons of nature, and I had different chapters and. One of the chapters is a technique that I love. We're using your non-dominant hand to draw, and your non-dominant hand is your childhood self, and your dominant hand is yourself now, and you have a conversation back and forth. And that's
well, I'm left-handed, so what should I do now? Because I'm opposite, right?
Well, you use your non-dominant hand, so you would use your
right hemisphere.
Your right hand.
Yeah, the right hand is the left hemisphere, so I got to use my analytical mind, I guess. More.
Yeah.
You're right-handed, I would imagine.
I am right-handed.
Okay, interesting. Now, the other thing you talk about the space issues. Now, I wrote the gift of shyness. I talk about people when they enter a space, they need to seize the space, confidence. And you mentioned that also in your book. How you walk in, with straight up, with a smile, perhaps. And people who are maybe insecure or shy, they shrink, right? They go to the corner. So that's kind of important, right? To be in the space fully.
Yeah, I think when we did the work or did the book club, a lot of people gave examples of times they would be in a waiting room and they would just kind of take the corner in the back, or they would make themselves smaller.
Yes.
And I think showing up in the world and having a presence is really important. And you can fake it if you don't really feel it on the inside. Mm-hmm. You can still walk in a room and smile and make eye contact. Hard to do, but it can be done.
One thing that helped me a lot in shyness and may help people is take improvisational acting, because improv actually does help you, work with space and work with, confidence and a lot of different things. It's really fun. It's in a fun setting too. So it's like a game.
I can see that. Yeah.
So we become what we are. Body image and gratitude scan. Like, look at yourself and be grateful for parts of your body you may not be happy about. And I know we said with women, this is a problem. Why is it a problem? For a lot of people.
I just think societal conditioning. Now with social media, we're just constantly being exposed to compare ourselves to images that are not even real or realistic. And so we can that comparison is a trap. that gets us into really fixating on specific parts and
Right.
be really unkind to those parts. So when you do a body scan, you might not be able to come up with something positive, but you can
Right.
at least come up with a neutral, or I have legs that help me walk. You don't have to love your thighs, but you can appreciate them for what they do.
Right. And the whole thing, this battle with food is going crazy. Diets all over the place. Someone told me you have to take a 3-day fast. Someone said a week fast. I eat nothing. Other people say once a day. What do you think of the whole? And what if you say I love to eat, but you are overweight? What's your advice to women and also others?
That's always a tricky one. That always gets me in a little bit of a conundrum, because I definitely think health and those kinds of things are really important.
Sure.
But I also say, if you love food and you love certain types of food, you want to enjoy life too. So I think balance is the key with everything, finding a good balance.
There's some people that they call them the plus models, or people that have more weight, but they're happy with it, I guess. What do you think of those folks that do that?
Yeah, I think that they've probably done a lot of work on accepting their body the way that it is, and being able to kind of break the stereotypes of what is beautiful or what other people find attractive. That's really to say everybody needs to look a certain way is sad to me.
Definitely. And the other thing is boundaries you talked about. So saying yes for what you want, saying no to what you don't want. And it's hard to say no for the givers, the caretakers and all that. They always say, I'll help you. So they might think, well, if I say no to you, you may not like me as much, but I need to love myself. It's hard for them to say that. So how would you advise the givers and the caretakers say no?
I would say that it's important to not always feel responsible for other people's feelings. I think that that's where the boundary gets crossed. So I used to think boundaries were keeping other people out. And then I recognized that boundaries also involves me being able to not overstep my boundary and feel too responsible for someone else and how they're feeling. And so that can be a helpful way of really saying, okay, well, I'm just as important as this person, and what they're needing, maybe me not wanting to do that is just as important. Not placing the other person above. And that doesn't mean that we don't practice kindness and compassion and work on our relationships and helping people. It just means that we have the permission to be able to say no.
I see what you're saying. Now, the other thing that's interesting to talk about is what I call the dichotomies, Megan. So dichotomies, kind of almost opposing polarities. Now, we have self-esteem, and then we have self-compassion. And the way I think you define self-esteem is more like external accomplishments, feeling good about it. Self-compassion is more internal. But what if I say to you, isn't it good to have self-esteem? I mean, like I said, I got an A on my test. I did something good at work. Or should there be more self-compassion? What's your take on that?
I think self-esteem you can be proud of yourself for the work and the effort and the accomplishments that we achieved. The thing that I like about self-compassion is self-esteem goes up and down. It's dependent on your achievements. And so when you don't reach your goals, it can plummet. Yeah. Self-compassion stays this way all the time, no matter what's happening in your life. You're kind to yourself and encouraging. So I tend to default to self-compassion more than self-esteem.
I see. You're right. So if you don't get a home run in the ball game, you're okay, right? You're batted. You did your work, or whatever it is that you're doing. Now, okay, here's one that may be a little challenging, as some people may say: self-compassion versus selfishness, or even narcissism. Right? Get to that level. You get to an extreme. I am the best, right? Why should I think about people? How do you respond to that one?
Yeah, that's self-love gone bad.
Oh, okay.
I think that sometimes we can kind of think that, but we're so great, we're so amazing. And honestly, the selfie movement, where people are just constantly taking pictures of themselves, that kind of breeds that I am the center of the world and the universe.
Social media has gone crazy sometimes, right, for that.
Yeah, so that I think that actually causes people to have the opposite view of what self-love really is. It's not meant to say I'm better than other people or that I'm the only one that matters. It's meant to say we all matter and we can show up ourselves and not necessarily put everybody above us and not get our needs met.
Right. You're talking about self-compassion, maybe our compassion as well, or empathy toward others. So having a little bit of a balance.
Exactly. And narcissism really is rooted in a lack of self-love. It's really deeply rooted in shame.
Good point.
It's just an overcompensation for that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very nice statement. Now, here's another one. Interesting. Self-compassion versus self-improvement. If I never criticize myself, how am I going to get better? Or if I don't accept criticism, what do you say about that? Or more, how will I be motivated?
Self-compassion is kind of like your personal coach who's encouraging you and kind of guiding you. They're not saying that you don't work hard towards your goals or that you don't continue to have kind of a growth mindset of where you're continually growing and improving. You're just giving yourself kindness and compassion as you go along that journey, very much like parenting. Our kids are going to make mistakes and screw up and make bad choices or decisions, but we still are compassionate and encouraging and want them to learn and grow.
Right. But should we criticize ourselves for growth purposes? I could have written that better. I could have said something better and improve on that or not even do that.
No, I think we should. I think that helps guide us sometimes of how could I make this better or how could I improve myself? The difference is it's just like the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is when I've done something wrong and it goes against my values and I know I shouldn't have done that. It's appropriate to feel that. It helps propel us to making the right choice next time. Shame is when we internalize it as I'm not good enough. And I think the same thing with self-improvement and self-compassion. It's not that self-improvement is wrong. It's just saying that we can do it in a way that doesn't get internalized as our worth is dependent on our growth.
Yeah, that's a very good distinction. Because again, some criticism externally can be useful, even though I think we talked about the personality types, the feelers, we take things personally. That's our nature. Mm-hmm. So we have to be a little careful with that kind of thing. Now, if you're a thinking personality, you actually can take it pretty well because, it's just a logical analysis, critique to help you get better. So
exactly. That's true too.
We can actually learn from the thinking personality types because they can just take it that way. Mm-hmm. The feelers, we take it a little personally until we learn how to do that. Now, here's an interesting one. Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a good point, that it's really individualized for each person and kind of where they are.
Right, exactly. I think I'm going to have Judith Orloff, one of those folks. Have you heard of her? She does stuff with highly sensitive people and all that. Mm-hmm. So there are people that are the empaths or the intuitive, the highly sensitive folks that, maybe take things like that. And also they beat themselves up a lot too.
Yeah.
Are you a highly sensitive person yourself, by any chance? Or more?
I'm actually, it's interesting on the Myers-Briggs, I'm right in the middle of F and T.
Oh,
so I'm pretty balanced with that. I think I've learned through the years. I've been doing counseling for almost 25 years now, full time, day in 8 sessions a day. And I've learned how to have cognitive empathy sometimes, which allows me to have compassion, but I don't have to feel it all because otherwise I wouldn't laugh.
You'd be burnt out, right? Because you take it to your personally. Okay, now here's an interesting one. Now this may be a little challenge, Megan. All right, so I'll buy into self-compassion. I really like it, so I'm going to apply it tonight. I'm going to eat a bunch of ice cream, watch Netflix for the whole week, and take care of myself. Okay, so self-compassion versus self-indulgence. How would you answer that one?
These are interesting. These are good comparisons. I think, again, it's balance. It's being able to say, if I want to stay in bed and watch Netflix and eat some ice cream every once in a while, and that's a way of.
Well, how about every night? Every night?
No, every night. That's to the extreme. So then, at that point, then you're engaging in addictive kind of behaviors that are probably numbing. It's something that is to not allow yourself to have your feelings. So self-compassion would be, I can feel my feelings, even the uncomfortable ones. I can treat myself in a loving way that doesn't necessarily involve overindulgence or potentially numbing behaviors.
Interesting. So feel my feelings, that is compassion, is what you're saying, even if it's a painful feeling or suffering?
Yep. Self-compassion involves mindfulness. It involves you being present and very aware of what's happening in our bodies or in our emotional state. And so I think by being compassionate to ourselves, we're not telling ourselves, I shouldn't feel that way, or this feeling's wrong, or this feeling's bad. It means that we allow ourselves to be present and sit with the way that we're feeling. And that can be uncomfortable sometimes, but it's not good or bad. We're not judging things. And that's a huge part of not practicing self-compassion is the judgmentalness. I'm good, I'm bad, I should or I shouldn't, which is that takes us away from practicing mindfulness, which is just to observe and notice and to be in the present moment.
Okay. So then to become self-compassionate, we don't have to get rid of all bad feelings necessarily, to feel bad?
No, it actually means that we allow ourselves to feel the full range of emotions. So if we've had a really difficult day at work, or we're feeling really sad and we've had a loss, that we tell ourselves it's okay for us to feel those feelings and to allow them to be there.
Interesting. Okay. All right. How about this one here? So I'm self-compassionate. I have a group project tomorrow, homework, but I'm going to sleep in tomorrow because I need to take care of myself. And of course, people may not be happy about it, but I'm taking care of myself. Now, how about self-compassion versus making excuses? How would you look at
That's interesting too. I would love to sleep in. I'm not a morning person, so I'm right there. But I would say making excuses sometimes is not taking accountability and responsibility for things that are potentially going to affect other people or affect yourself in a negative way. And so self-compassion means, it doesn't mean that we allow ourselves just to say we don't have to have responsibility or we don't have to follow through with what we say. It means if we screw up, we can acknowledge, hey, I'm not a horrible, terrible person, but I could have done a better job. I should have made that appointment and kept it. And that's that whole guilt versus shame thing. This was something I shouldn't have done. It was rather than making an excuse, taking accountability and ownership of that. But you can do that in a way that you're still worthy. You're not a horrible, terrible person.
Right. I see. So the screw up, the unworthiness is really the trouble part. The bad part is, you make a mistake, but then, if you're a horrible person versus, I learn from my mistake. But this case,
actually, venture to say people who make excuses probably are not practicing self-compassion because they have to come up with a reason why they rather than just owning, hey, I messed up. I made a mistake. I should have done that.
Okay. Yeah. But if I sleep late because I'm taking care of my beauty sleep, how do you respond to that?
That's a priority.
Well, it's a priority, but you messed up the group project. You didn't do it.
Yeah, I'd say that's the person putting themselves, their priority is their beauty over responsibility and meeting in the group. And so I guess each person has to decide, what their priorities are and what the consequences are from their choices and their actions.
But you wouldn't recommend that, would you?
No.
Hurting people, other people in the group,
Absolutely not. I think that being considerate and to be sensitive to other people. Now, let's say something has happened, your dog died and the group's meeting and you have to deal with this crisis and emergency.
Yes.
Do you not attend to something that is urgent or needed because you're like, well, I don't want to let my group down.
Sure.
Sometimes we have to make those hard decisions.
Right, exactly.
There's conflicts.
Right. But self-compassion is not selfishness, like you said, right? It's not just you.
It's not self.
You're looking at, so other people as well, empathy-wise. So you can see this as extended outwardly. So if you're self-compassionate, you can be compassionate to others. And love, maybe that could be another book. Maybe the second part of this is self-compassion becomes compassion, right? And well, you wrote a second book. Tell us about that one.
Yes, that one's, it's called Be Kind to Yourself, and it's much more in depth, I think, and much more comprehensive. So some people like the self-love workbook because it's a little bit more simple in the exercises. The material's not simple, but the way it's written is a little bit more simple. The Be Kind to Yourself is a 52-week guided journaling. So it's for each week, there's a chapter, it's a couple pages long, and it highlights the seasons in nature. So the winter time is all about nurturing our solitude and rest and hibernation, and springtime's about our nurturing our creativity and new life and new beginnings, and summer's about playfulness and being able to be present in the moment, and fall season, those exercises are about grief and loss and change. And so it's a deeper dive into the mind, body, and the spirit, and then also the world around us. So it's not so focused on just yourself. It's focused on, it's a little bit more comprehensive. I personally think the Be Kind to Yourself book is a little bit better or more richer in content.
Right.
And it goes it's much broader, and it's not, I have it right here. It's a pretty book.
Oh yeah. There we go.
It's not designed necessarily for just women. It's designed for everyone.
I like that. Can I see it again? Do you have any?
Oh yeah.
Do you have cartoons or anything in there, or illustrations?
It's inside. It's color coded, so each season has
nice.
color. And there's
colorful.
there's lots of little activities.
I like that.
Things like that inside.
That's a lot of fun. Yeah, I can see that being very beneficial. Kind to yourself. But also, I'm wondering, here's another area with the pandemic, people felt isolated, and actually loneliness, they say, is one of the biggest diseases in the world, even can kill people, heart disease and all that stuff. So how about loneliness? Because when you're lonely, you're not necessarily loving yourself, or, you're trying to, but there's no connection. What's your advice for the lonely people in the world, especially the holidays? There are a lot of people that maybe have nobody really important in their life. Maybe they're single or whatever it is. So tell us about that.
It's interesting. I spent Thanksgiving by myself this year alone.
There you go.
Because my kids were visiting family and I was working.
It's pretty common, actually.
But I didn't feel lonely. Because to me, being alone is not necessarily the same thing as loneliness.
Did people call or text you or anything? Anyone tell you?
Yeah, I have connections with people. Okay. But what I realized is that the loneliness comes from not feeling like you matter or that you're connecting. And so there are ways to be able to put yourself out there to make connections. Sometimes it is through social media for some people. Right. Sometimes it's, just even, I think there's some newer research that talks about connecting with people, even on superficial levels, rather than having deep, meaningful, intense connections. Sometimes it's just saying hi to somebody at the grocery store or, talking to a neighbor, and they don't have to be really intense, but we do need to have them as humans.
Right, like micro connections that you can call I call extend loving energy without expectation. Smile at someone, give them a sincere compliment, and then without expectation. So it's kind of a little external energy, and because apparently people are afraid of each other. There's a fear that we have that they're going to judge us, reject us, criticize us, and especially if you're sensitive. So I think, being compassionate to yourself is part of that, right? Loving yourself, but also to realize that other people are in the same boat. They're all, we're all universally similar.
And that you can meet people that might not like you or might not agree with you or might not like your vibe or your personality. Sure. And that doesn't mean you're not good enough or that you're not okay. Definitely. It just means those aren't your people. And everyone, is at different places in their life.
Exactly. I give the metaphor as be like the sun. The sun shines on the young, the old, the pretty, not so pretty, the rich and the poor. But if someone doesn't like the sun and covers up, the sun doesn't get mad. It just keeps shining. And then some people love the sun.
That's great.
So you are the sun today for us, Megan. I really appreciate it being here today. You seem like a lovely and very positive person. And you want to help people. So that's important. Tell us, is there a website or other ways to get a hold of you and any things you're working on these days?
Yes, I have an Instagram, but I take breaks from it a lot. I'm not super big on social media, so I don't think I have it active right now. I think I have a professional Facebook page. Again, I'm not very active on it. I have a website.
Okay, so tell us the website. Okay.
It's just my name, Megan Logan, LCSW for licensed clinical social worker.com. Okay. And it's really geared towards, like I said, I'm a clinician. That's my passion. Yes. It's really geared towards my clinical services.
I see, no problem. Are you able to take new patients or do you do coach anything else?
I am so full. I stay full but I can sometimes can get people in, work them in, but I'm pretty booked up. So I think my website says I'm not taking new patients for that reason.
Okay. But you just like to help people. You seem like a humble and giving person. So you want to connect.
Yes. I do love helping people. And, it's interesting. I always say, I didn't set out to write the book. It just kind of happened, and it's reached so many people. And to me, that's really what matters is the amount of, I've heard back from women all over the world, really in different countries, and how they've used the book. And so how cool is that, to get to play a part?
That's amazing. You're not thought of doing any group Zooms or anything like that, any workshops?
I should. I should have a course or something.
Yeah, your internal energy, right? So you may not want to, externalize too much.
I put a lot of energy into my therapy and into my connections with that. And so I am fulfilled.
You're drained.
I guess. And I'm drained at the same time. And so right now I'm focusing on, I'm learning pottery and I'm doing a few, I've kind of put the books behind me and now I'm moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, I take a nice hot tub when I'm a little bit overwhelmed or, relax a little bit.
Yeah, that's nice.
Self-love, right? We need that.
Yeah,
the massage,
self-love and hot tub.
And the hot tubs and all. Well, it's been a pleasure having you, Megan, on the show. We'd love to have you back on again. And actually, when I'm in Miami, I don't know how far are you from Miami? Are you far from Miami at all?
I'm about 5 hours probably from Miami, north of Miami.
Are you close to Orlando, or what's your location?
I'm north of Orlando. I'm actually close to Jacksonville, St. Augustine. Close to Jacksonville, maybe like an hour from Georgia.
Oh, so you're in the real southern kind of part of the Florida, they say.
Northern.
Well, northern, but close to the south, they say, up there. Georgia.
Well, yeah, close to the south in terms of the southern states.
Southern drawl. Okay.
Yes.
So again, it's been a pleasure. So this is Dr. Alvina. If anyone wants to comment on today's show or have a response to our guests, you can reach us at loveuniversity.love. Call us at 310-226-8090. Write to us at loveuniversitylove@gmail.com. Again, Megan, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. And again, the message is self-love and, of course, loving others and something higher. Been a pleasure.
Great.
That was really a fun interview with Megan Logan, a licensed therapist who is also a person who loves self-love and teaches us how to love ourselves. That's very important. Self-compassion. Because many times we grow up in environments, maybe we don't have that. It could be our parents or maybe our voices in our head that tell us we're not good enough, we're not attractive enough, smart enough to be successful in life. But to turn it around, say, yes, I am worthy. I am lovable. I can give, I can help, contribute is a wonderful and powerful thing. And at Love University, that's one of our main goals, is to have that in your heart, that you can love yourself, others, and a higher nature. Now, if you want to be part of the Love University program that we have, you can call us at 310-226-8090. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Love University Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Love Letter U Podcast. You can download the podcast on Spotify, SoundCloud, Podbean, and iTunes. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Love University. We have a lot of really interesting videos. They can teach a lot of things that can really transform your life. And love can be a universal force that can do many things. So until next time, this is Dr. Alex Avila. Put away your notebooks, your iPads, your phones. Class is now dismissed. Remember, love yourself.